Hi there guys, and welcome back to another video. This video is on section 4.1, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the addition principle. So let's just say we have the true inequality that 1 is less than 2. So we know 1 is less than 2. Now let's say that we take this and we add 2 to both sides. Do we still have a true inequality? So I'm going to take 2, add to both sides. Well, on the left-hand side, I'm going to get, so I'll do this somewhat formally. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 2 is 4. Well, is 3 less than 4? So if I take a number and I add it to both sides of the inequality, do I change the inequality? And the answer is no. So if I add a number to both sides of an inequality, that's perfectly legitimate. It does not affect the direction of the inequality. We still get 3 is less than 4. So this is really the addition principle. It says that you can add or subtract the same quantity to both sides of an inequality. That's the addition principle. It's the same idea as the addition principle for equations. So just like if you had x equals 1, then that would mean x plus 1 would be 2. This would be the addition principle for equations, but we're talking about it for inequalities like this. Awesome. Now let's get to the multiplication principle. Multiplication principle is a little bit trickier for inequalities. And that's because of one key thing. So let's just say we take the inequality that we know is true again. We know 1 is less than 2, right? But what I want to do is I want to take this inequality and multiply it by something on both sides. Let's say I multiply it by, let's consider case 1 where I multiply it by a positive number. So multiply by times by a positive number. Let's see what happens in that case. So we multiply by a positive number. Let's multiply both sides by 2 times 2 times 2. Well, on the left side we get 1 times 2, and that's 2. On the right side we get 2 times 2, which is 4. Now, is 2 less than 4? Of course it is, yes. So what we experimentally verified is that the multiplication principle works for positive numbers. We still get the same inequality direction when we take an inequality and multiply both sides by a positive number. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to consider what happens to an inequality when we multiply by a negative number. So we still have 1 is less than 2. We know that to be true. Now let's multiply both sides by negative 1. So if I multiply both sides of this inequality by negative 1, on the left-hand side, we're going to have 1 times negative 1, that's just negative 1, right? And on the right-hand side, we're going to have 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2. All right, so we kind of started off, I'll picture this with the number line. We started off here, so here's 0, 1, 2. So we had that 1 was less than 2. We knew that to be the case, right? So we had this dot was less than this dot. And then, watch what happens. After I'll note this in red, after we multiply by negative 1, multiplying by negative 1 takes 1, and it takes it to negative 1, right? And multiplying by negative 1 to 2 takes 2, and it brings it to negative 2. So notice now that what this did, multiplying by a negative sign, actually reversed our inequality. Because originally we had 1 was less than 2, we multiplied by negative 1, and then we actually got that negative 1, remember negative 1 has to be greater than negative 2, right? Or in other words, just to tack on, to really hammer the point home, multiplying or dividing an inequality by a negative number I'm going to abbreviate it, neg, a negative number reverses the order of the inequality. In other words, in particular, we started out with 1 was less than 2, and then we ended up with -1 is greater than -2 after we multiplied by a negative. So multiplying by or dividing by a negative through an inequality results in the inequality having the opposite direction as it had before. So that's it for this video. Or maybe just to conclude, the addition principle, to summarize, the addition principle is exactly the same as for equations as before. You can add and subtract quantities from both sides of an inequality in the exact same way that you did it before with equations. And now for the multiplication principle, you're totally fine multiplying an inequality by a positive number. It does not mess up the direction of the inequality. But just remember, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, if you multiply or divide an equality by a negative number, that's when you have to remember to flip the inequality. So that's it for this video, guys. I just really wanted to touch on the addition and multiplication principles, and in the following videos for section 4.1 we'll tackle some more complicated examples, get into some applications, round out that section, get into section 4.2, and after 4.2 we're on to our first exam. We'll have 1 day of review and then it will be an exam. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next video.